Hi guys, I'm Karen Rice and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to be painting an abstract seascape painting. It's just something that anyone can do. I am going to use a little bit of nature in there, so you're going to see that it's sky, you're going to see it's water and mountains and grasses. I'm using the back of an old piece of watercolour paper. It's a back of an old painting. That takes the pressure off, and that's such a valuable thing to do, because then you can just enjoy yourself, relax, just tell yourself you're practicing. A lot of the times when I do that, I get my best work. Anyway, shall we start painting? So here are the materials I'm using. I've taped down my watercolour paper onto a board with my framing tape, but you could use masking tape. I've also got my plastic palette and I've squeezed out some colours. I've got yellow ochre, light red, burnt umber, Prussian blue, ultramarine and manganese blue, but you could use cerulean. Also got a metal palette knife, a plastic palette knife, an old painting brush, a cut up piece of plastic card, and my spritzer bottle, and just out of shot my water pot and some tissues. A list of these materials will be in the description below, and if you've got any questions please put them in the comments section. I'm also going to use a size 10 sable brush. So I'm wetting the sky area first, just all over, give it a good soak with a large paintbrush, and now I'm painting the sky ultramarine with my size 10 brush and leaving sort of gaps for the white clouds, and then using a little bit of this yellow ochre colour just to put some warmth in the sky around the cloud area. Now I'm mixing this light red with the ultramarine, and I'm going to sort of get a sort of a warmish purpley grey and just pop that in the sky. This is all wet in wet, and just finishing off here, just putting that towards the left there, getting rid of some of the puddles now, draining those off because they can seep back into the paint if you're not careful and create backruns. Mind you, with this style of painting I don't think backruns will matter too much. So now I'm using my palette knife and I'm using the burnt umber colour with a little bit of a tiny bit of the ultramarine in there as well. That's it, the ultramarine going on as well. I mean, this is kind of semi-wet, semi-dry area, so it creates a lot of texture when you're doing this. This is so different from ordinary watercolour painting, so out there. I mean, it's little bit like oil painting or even acrylic painting, and it's quite nice to push the boundaries of these watercolour paintings. For so many years we've been these tight watercolour artists. Now we can have fun with using palette knives and doing all these different techniques. I've just put a little bit of Prussian blue here, bit more of the, I mean, just dabbing my brush into any of the colours really, a little bit of the light red. You do get some really lovely colours here. What I have noticed with this technique, it kind of almost looks like pastels a little bit. So I'm using the large brush now and just softening the edge of these kind of hills and just softening everything, and I've wet the water and I'm putting in this beautiful Winsor Newton manganese blue, but you could use cerulean. It's quite a similar colour really, a bit stronger. And I'm just putting a touch of this yellow ochre with that there. I mean, I'm breaking all the rules here. I mean, I'm literally putting this palette knife on top of my tube paint. Ridiculous, really. But I just love to express myself in this way. You know, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. This is totally from my imagination as well. But I'm just putting in some Prussian blue now here. And this is going to be kind of like a foreground. Just left this film running for a bit. As you can see to the left there, the way that paint's just moving towards that puddle. I just think that's what I love about watercolour painting. Look at it, it's got a mind of its own. It's beautiful. And I'm just giving this a little tilt because there is a bit of a puddle there, and I just want to tilt that away to the side. Look at that to the right there, all that lovely texture and the pigment. Oh, it's so exciting. So you just don't know what's going to happen here. I'm just letting it all just flow, you know, just create all these lovely natural effects. So I'm using the plastic palette knife now, and I've just mixed some of the ochre in with the Prussian blue, just putting in some foreground grasses. I'm actually just putting on pure ochre. This is straight from the tube, creamy paint. Things that we were told not to do in watercolour. I'm doing it all. I'm breaking all the rules and feeling good about it. I'm using the tip of the palette knife to make some scratchy grasses, creating lots of yummy textures. And now I'm putting a bit of this manganese blue into that colour. This paint is very, very creamy, but the paper is extremely wet, so it is getting diluted onto this paper. So I'm just mixing up a really thick dark green here, Prussian blue, some of the yellow ochre, even a touch of the brown, and just painting that into the foreground here. It is so much like oil painting in a way, but it is watercolour, and you get those beautiful effects that watercolour have. You know, you can see in the background there's lovely granulation, it's soft, it's got those wet and soft edges that you get from painting wet in wet. So I'm just putting in really thick creamy paint here. I'm having so much fun. Really, you can see how thick it is, just scraping off that yellow ochre there. Now I'm going to give it a spray. I'm spraying off a little bit in the water here because I felt it lost a little bit of light. So I'm just spraying that off there. What's beautiful about this technique is sometimes you don't touch it with a brush at all, and sometimes a brush can tighten you up, and these different techniques really can sort of loosen us up a bit. I love that little run there of Prussian blue. It looks gorgeous. Now I'm tilting this forward just to get some more texture. You know, I kind of go with it. I just like what happens. You can see a close-up of that now, all that lovely texture that I got from letting it run down. So I'm using this sort of light red colour now and just painting in the hills here a little bit more, just painting that on. Rich and thick and creamy. There's something very liberating with painting with a palette knife. And on goes the Prussian blue. I mean, this is probably the scariest colour if you ever buy a watercolour. It's such a strong colour, and a little goes a long, long way. So just popping this on here just to really create a bit of tone, a bit of dark in these hills here, just to really get them to stand out. And I'm putting this same dark in the foreground. And there's something really interesting about putting on paints with a palette knife, in the really sort of rubbing it in. It's got this lovely feel to the paint here. You're probably all looking in horror at how I'm painting this watercolour, but it is so nice. I have actually painted in oils in a similar way. I use water-based oils and use a similar technique to what I'm doing here with spraying and everything, so it's great fun. So I'm using the edge of the knife now to create some lovely sort of thin grasses, and just finishing off there, just filling in some of those gaps. I'm running out of paint here. But look at that. Oh, I love that dark tone there. It's really lovely. It's so nice. It's so nice to do this technique. It's quite nice using these very lightweight plastic palettes because I'm actually standing and painting this picture as well. So I'm holding this in my hand. It's quite accessible. So just really putting in the final bits of detail here. These foreground grasses, just literally painting with a palette knife. I'm using a plastic card now that I cut up. It's just like a store card, plastic, and you can cut it up into all different shapes. So what it does, it's taking off the paint. So you're getting the underpainting showing through, and it's quite an exciting technique. I'm just scratching off here to show some light in the water, light on the riverbank edge. And look at that, you can just literally pull off to make it look like rocks here. So you're just pulling off the paint. The paint mustn't be too wet when you do this. If it is too wet, it just scratches the paper. So wait until the paint dries off a bit, then do it. Don't wait too long because obviously it will dry and you won't be able to pull it off at all. And the paint has to be quite creamy as well. I'm using this now, the same technique, to pull off the dark in the foreground. And it introduces a bit of light, because remember I put on a lot of dark, thick, creamy paint there. Isn't it lovely where you can see that there, where you can see a lovely under blue painting? It's beautiful. So I'm just finishing off now with a few more marks and ripples in the water. And as I said earlier about the semi-abstract nature, I've still got the elements of nature here, but some of it is kind of bordering on the abstract. I'm giving it one last little spray. I just think it's gorgeous there on the bottom right hand side. I get so excited when I paint in this sort of style. Here I'm just getting a little bit more light because this bit of shore and water is further away. I love this part, taking off the framing tape. One is it makes me stop painting, and also it gives you a lovely clean white border, and you can sit and hopefully admire the painting that you've done. I'm just putting a mount around it now. I find this really useful to see if you need to do any more work on the painting. So this is the picture here, and I'm really, really pleased with it. It's dried very nicely. It's really atmospheric. I tried to keep a minimalist palette just to keep it so it didn't get too colourful and too over the top. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you'd like to see any other videos like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll get updates of my latest videos. Thank you again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.